This podcast is called The Card Historian. My name is Ray. My co-host is going to be Steve. He is joining us via audio only today. And the point of this podcast is essentially going to be how to re-enter the card collecting market. Obviously, as you can see, a high priority will be placed on baseball. We will be talking current sets, past sets, the buying habits, what to look for, what not to look for. Goal of this whole thing is not to persuade anyone. It's more to educate those that have not been in the hobby or, like myself, have been out of the hobby for 20 years. Steve has a wealth of knowledge and experience, and I really am looking forward to some of our conversations. I'm going to just throw it over to him to kind of introduce himself and give any new listeners an idea of what we're trying to do here. So, Steve, take it away, please.
Thank you, Ray. How you doing?
Good, man. Good. Nice to have you.
Nice to be here.
Thanks.
So, when you mentioned this to me, I thought it's a great idea. Having been a card collector back in the 90s and having a card store, and then, just life happens and you fall out of stuff or just don't have the time anymore. And then getting back into it again, I made a lot of mistakes.
Sure.
Like a
As
lot
did I.
of expensive mistakes. So I figured, it'd be a great way for people to get just their a foothold in how to maybe go about it, different ways to do it, what to expect out of it. Honestly, it's a hobby. It should be fun first. But as you get deeper into it, you see that some people really don't have much fun.
Also true. Also very true. And I'm glad you brought that up, because that is probably the major reason that I got out of it. Now, when I was collecting, I was a teenager. I'm 37 now, so this is early to mid 90s. As any kid would, you bought cards, you wanted to make sets, and binders were big back then. And we've had this conversation off air. I've just recently gotten back into the hobby, and the first thing I bought was a binder, because I'm that kind of a dork. But I one of the first things I said to you was like, man, this is not the market that I remember. Now, you said you and your dad had a card store back in the 90s. When we're talking about here, what's the major difference, other than the quality and such? What's the major difference between collecting cards in, let's say, the mid to late 90s versus now?
I have to say, even going back to it, the fun aspect of it, I think that's the thing you have to find first, and find what you want to collect. Where back then, it was kind of easy to buy whatever came out. It could be cost prohibitive in a way nowadays, which is kind of also why I wanted to do this with you, is because you don't have to buy the most expensive product to enjoy it. And even not only just build a collection, but build a collection that has value, whether it's to yourself or if you wanted to, sell things down the road. We went from an age where packs were 36 packs in a box, pretty much standard across the board. Maybe 50 cents to $1 a pack, even up to that point. Mm-hmm. So boxes were 36, maybe 40 if it was something really high end. Now, you go to those same boxes. I'll use Topps for an example. A box would be at max $36. They're $89 to $94 just to pre-order them.
Yeah.
So I know there's inflation and all of that, but it's still a big jump. You're talking, and knowing what to buy is, if you look at the current card market, you can just go nuts trying to figure out what to get.
Oh, absolutely. I agree with you 100%. That's, I think, where I'll start is, I'd been out of the hobby for almost 20 years. After getting a little bit older, I didn't really find the value in it, because I think as a kid, most kids have the same idea. You don't start collecting because you're looking to make money. You're collecting because you like the players, or you like the hobby, or whatever. Now, 20 years later, as basically a 40-year-old man, if I'm collecting cards, unless it's a Yankee guy, because I'm a diehard Yankee fan, I know you're a diehard Mets fan, I want to get back into this to make money. And I think a lot of people, at least in the 90s, I remember a lot of people telling me, if that's what you're doing this for, you're not doing this for the right reasons. However, 20 years later, based on preliminary conversations you and I had, you make one good pull, your whole outlook for that particular year could change financially.
Yeah.
Pardon me. Tell me a little bit about why that is. Now, we haven't really gotten into the major differences between the two, and I want to get to that next, but essentially just give us a brief overview of, let's say, when I pulled a rookie card in a pack in the 90s, even if it was, we were talking about Ken Griffey Jr., when that card came out, it was, $150 card at the time. You have a card now, before you even get it graded, it might be worth $500 or more. What's the main reason for that?
I think, especially in the last 3 years, the resurgence of it, people's free time, I guess you could say, or more time to have hobbies, really brought it around full circle to people getting back into it like you and I that weren't before. There's always been card collectors, or they wouldn't exist. It's just there was newer and newer generations. Now, with it being such literally a commodities market, like stock market type of level of buy low, sell high with anything, obviously that's what you want to do. But that's more of what people are looking for.
Yeah.
Especially the newer collector. And I have to say, I'm almost 50. The younger collector have that much time to put into it to try and flip everything. Being a Mets fan, that's my core thing, is collecting those cards and sets. And just players I like in general. Everything else can go.
Yeah.
And, if you have to find that balance for yourself, and you could actually not only make it just a break-even hobby, but also even to make money.
And that's a great point. And I agree with you 1,000%. And honestly, that's, like you said, that's one of the reasons that I think we both wanted to get back into this. You've been in it a little bit more recently, had gotten back into it, obviously, than me. Well, and you and I have had this conversation many times. Like you said, the card market itself, just as far as the product, is different, because when I was a kid in the 90s, when I was a teenager, you had Upper Deck, you had Leaf, you had Pinnacle, you had, all the major stuff, Topps, Upper Deck, everything else. Those things are still around, but I've noticed one company, maybe two companies have a license. The other companies, I'm getting Shohei Ohtani, I'm getting Aaron Judge with logoless uniforms, which I don't care if it's a one of one, whatever. It doesn't make it attractive to me to even look at that. Why is that happening? And are those sets attractive from a financial standpoint or not so much?
Financially, not really. For baseball, I want to be clear there, because then there's a far divide between football and basketball. So basically what happened was Topps went out and got the MLB license regarding the teams. Players Association is in agreement with Topps, and Panini, that makes Donruss and all the other, their whole offshoot of baseball cards. But they have no team logos. They're, for the most part, airbrushed out, and some of them look horrible.
A lot.
You would think in this day and age that, they'll be able to airbrush something and have it not look like it's airbrushed. I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves.
Yeah.
But with Topps doing that, well, their license, I believe it's 2025 is when it expires.
Okay.
It's either for the 2025 season or right after 2025.
Okay.
So then Donruss is going to be back, or Panini is going to be back in a big way with now having the licensed uniforms, and that's going to change things yet again in a drastic way. It's not, it gets on a more micro level. Just as a quick example, Mike Trout only signs with Topps. If you love Mike Trout, don't mess with Panini. There's no reason to. He has a contract with Topps to sign. And signatures are a huge part of the hobby right now. Most boxes have some sort of guarantee of one or one or two boxes. And, for a big player, you're not going to get that kind of return necessarily with Panini. They do their own thing. They've gotten Jason Dominguez from the Yankees, the Martian. That was the only cards initially of him were with them. Now Topps has him because he's officially with the Yankees, if you will. But his first cards were that way, and you can only get them through Panini products.
Yeah.
So there's a little, fighting back and forth there as far as trying to get these big names.
I have a Shohei rookie from Bowman that it just looks funny because there's no logos on anything. I don't know if it's a rookie, but it's some sort of Shohei. And I get you. Now, what was the reasoning for the exclusive Topps contract? Did they just outbid everyone else, or did baseball want to stop the oversaturation of the card market, or what? I mean, what was happening with why did that happen? Do we know that?
100% money. Quite honestly, the card market itself, thankfully, because it had such a hard crash into the 90s, that production numbers are nowhere near what they were, which is also what makes it an enticing hobby. I mean, you look at, let's say, 87 Topps, for example. Everybody remembers that wood grain border.
Everything on earth. Favorite card design. Yep.
Yeah. Barry Bonds.
Barry Bonds. With them. That's it.
On average, there's probably close to 800,000 to $1 million of each player. And that's like no joke. There's that many of them made. Where now, really, it's probably in the, I'm going to shoot a little high, maybe say 200,000 of a card made through a production run for a set. You know, when you tie grading into that and having the most pristine copy of that card that's already quasi-limited is huge. But yeah, it all came down to money. Topps just threw the most at them.
Right on. And so, like, was that, before that happened, like, were the people that were in the hobby, because I was not, and I was completely out of the loop at this time, but did card collectors, hobbyists, whatever, did they know this was coming prior to this happening?
I think at that point they did, because you have to look at the generation gap, too. When we were collecting at that age, and at that time, the internet really wasn't a thing. Yeah, you got all your stuff in your news out of Beckett, Tough Stuff.
God, I miss
Collector's Digest, which was like a newspaper. I found one actually in our garage yesterday. So you went from that, where stuff wasn't so widely known, to now, I mean, everything everybody does is on the internet somewhere, So, which ties into affecting card value too in a huge way. Ask Trevor Bauer. But
Trevor Bauer, we're gonna have to dedicate a whole nother episode to that. It'll be NSF for work, so I'll put that out there now.
100%. But as an example, not that his cards are super expensive, but a talented guy, decent pitcher, torpedoed any value for a collector. It's just gone. And that's what also kind of makes the hobby kind of fun in a weird way, is if they do something wacky, but then you flip it the other way around. Albert Pujols comes out and hits 700 home runs. Fantastic for the hobby. Amazing. So, you get the good with the bad, but at the same time, if you're investing, if someone was, stockpiling Trevor Bauer rookies, good luck with that. You're not going to be doing too good.
You are so right. And and that brings up a good point. And I'll stay on the Trevor Bauer just because that's what we're talking about. Obviously, yes, he torpedoed his career. Obviously, he's a scumbag. And I'll say that for myself. I'm not speaking for you. I think he's a scumbag. Regardless of whatever was proven or thrown out or whatever, he's a scumbag. Is there any card of his that is ever going to be worth money, or is the stigma of him being toolbox never going to make anything of his valuable, essentially?
Yeah, pretty much exactly that. I mean, there's definitely one of ones of his out there.
Sure.
Some Topps products have one of every card. There's printing plates that are ones of one. And usually talking super rare stuff, and it's still not even going to be. I mean, it'll hold some intrinsic value.
Just because of the scarcity,
right? But something one of his rookies versus one of Shohei. I mean, we're in two different leagues right there as far as value goes.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, that's good to know, because that's, again, and I say I agree, because I mean, you say these things and it makes sense, but for somebody like me, who's really just getting into this hobby, now obviously I wouldn't look after Trevor Bauer as an investment just on principle, but that's good to know, because I don't think a lot of people realize that if a player is not a good boy off the field, that could really screw with your bottom line if you are hedging, having some good pulls from said player, and all of a sudden they're persona non grata in the public eye.
Yeah, that happens a lot with prospects. Prospecting and investing in hundreds of copies of a prospect's card is huge in the market, and it's a good way to make money without a doubt. Guy gets nailed for peds, you're done. Yeah, you might as well just put them away, burn them, whatever. But it just completely takes their value.
I just want to piggyback off that point, because that memory of mine, which I'm sure you'll be familiar with. So again, everybody who may ever listen to this, forgive me. This is episode 1. If you see things moving back and forth, I'm still getting used to what I'm doing. I also just had knee surgery, so I'm squirming, so forgive me. But what I was going to say is when you are getting back into this, whether it's for financial, whether it's for the love of the game, whether it's whatever, do you have any advice for the collector? Just, and if so, is that advice any different than, it would have been in the 90s?
Not much at all, honestly. There's some little differences, I would say. But number one that transcends collecting cards of any kind since they first came out in tobacco packages is collect them because you like them. If you just want to collect Yankee cards, do it. If you just want to collect one player, do it. If that's what you like, that's what you should do. That still holds, and I'm glad it does, and that the money hasn't completely overridden everything. Not that I don't like to make money. I showed you 2 cards earlier. I just got that graded. Those are getting sold immediately because it's money. But the part that has changed is how to start and what to buy. And kind of like when we were talking a few weeks ago, blasters are a great way to see, is this for me? You get 7 to 10 packs, open them up. They're usually in the $20 range. It's small investments, Steve. It's just, it's like buying a lottery ticket. You don't like it, you put them away. It's not, no harm done. I wouldn't advise anybody to, for their first product, go out and buy a $300 box of, like Topps Chrome or something like that. It could really turn someone off to the hobby very quickly until you kind of build up steam and know what you like.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I remember when we had our initial conversations, you had a very long conversation with me telling me, Topps is kind of the neighborhood you want to stick in, just because of the whole licensing and, they really hold their value and all that stuff. And, everything you just talked about the other brands losing their licensing for somebody like me or for a new collector. I mean, the card might look funny, but they're not going to know that that's worth maybe a tenth of what that same card in Topps Chrome is worth just because of a licensing issue. So I think that's everything you just said is very, very important to point out. And what you just said, I'm going to try to segue a little bit more into that, the whole kind of starting up your collection, the collecting 101 side of things. You talked about, blaster boxes and stuff. And I want to drill down into that because I find that stuff fascinating, and it's also confusing. I'm not even going to lie to you.
100%. That's where I made a lot of mistakes early on.
I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, and as anyone can tell, I have a face for radio. It's not, it's not the easiest thing to figure out because there is a lot of different subsets. And for this first episode, we're just trying to give people kind of an introduction. So I'm gonna try to kind of keep it a little bit general and brief, but tell me, I'm going to try to start at the top, and hopefully I'm starting in the right place here. Tell me the difference. So when we're talking buying cards now, there's retail boxes, there's hobby boxes. There's differences there. Not only pricing differences, there's card differences, there's variational differences, there's location differences. You can't get hobby boxes at Target. You can't get hobby boxes at Walmart. Can you explain to us just, a brief overview, retail versus hobby, and tell us a little bit about the two?
I'm going to start with what it comes down to first, and then I'll explain. Okay. You get what you pay for. The stuff like the blasters, retail boxes that you can get at Walmart and Target are, like I said, a great entry point. Low cost. You can still pull something really awesome. But more than likely, you're not going to get autographs. You're not going to get cards with pieces of uniform or bat in them. You're just going to pretty much get base cards, maybe a couple parallels, which are usually different colors. Topps likes to do the gold, which carries over from the 90s. Topps gold cards. They still exist. They don't look quite the same. They're more gold bordered now.
I have a box on pre-order. I think we talked about that last week. Yeah. So they're not released yet. Another late release 2022.
So that's the big part of it. But and that same token, and I'm going to throw, I can remember the name of the store. It's a drugstore. Big chain. Can't think of the name of it right now.
CVS? Rite Aid?
Nope.
Walgreens.
Cool. So Topps has special blaster boxes, which are roughly 10 packs for Walmart, Target, and Walgreens. each with their own color variations matching their store. So Walgreens, I believe, are yellow, Walmart's blue, and Target's are red. And that's only the border of the card, but they are more limited in number and only available through those outlets. So that kind of also adds to the chase, if you will.
I like that.
What you might be looking for, especially collecting maybe a team or player. It's cool to pick packs up at various places, and they're readily available. You know, I could go to Walmart right now and come back and have 2 blaster boxes to rip while we're talking.
Cool.
Now, to the other side of that coin is the hobby box. The biggest thing you can do, and it's sometimes the hardest thing for a new collector, myself included, to jump in and just pre-order. So I started out with a few blasters here and there. I'm like, I'm really digging this. This is cool. Big reason why I got into it was Shohei Mania. And the guy has been worth every penny of it so far, and I hope he's a New York Met next year. But
Yankee, tomato. Go ahead.
Watch you play with the Marlins or something.
Yeah, if that's the case, this is going to be the football historian next year.
Yeah. So, like, by pre-ordering, and I'm going to use this here as an example because I literally just did this week. We both did. I pre-ordered a box of Topps 2023, what they call flagships, regular Topps cards as you've known them from before. They're still the same. They just look way better.
See this in my bad video?
Yes, that came out very well.
The jumbo box. Believe this is one of the ones Steve is referring to. This came for me today. So you can't see this with my virtual background here, but it says on the box you get, as you were saying earlier, 1 autograph and 2 relic cards in every hobby jumbo box, which is what this is, a hobby jumbo box. So Steve, tell us specifically, you talked to us just now about retail. There are variations in retail, as you said. There's Walmart, there's Target as far as color variations. They're cheap. You could still pull really good stuff. Sounds like they're really good for set builders, if you're a set builder. But tell us why hobby boxes, why these are worth the extra dough, because these are not the same price as retail. And so, why is that, and why not, like, as you said, not that the other ones are not worth it, but why is it potentially why are they more expensive, and what would the payoff be going hobby versus retail? Where can you buy hobby? And, what is the main reason for having a 2 differentiating kind of sets, if you will?
It's what they refer to as hits and pulling those hits. I just went through my box here, what I pulled from what I'd opened, to give you an example of how good and how bad it can be. Okay, so the jumbo box, like you had there, I believe it's 42 cards a pack.
Okay.
Then you get 10 packs per box. So 420 cards. The regular sized hobby box are 14 cards per pack, and you get 24 cards per pack, but no guaranteed autograph. You're guaranteed an autograph or a relic. So right there, jumbos take the lead, but then they're also more money. But you're getting more products. It balances out. It really does. I think I got on pre-sale the regular hobby box for $84 and $124 for the jumbo, which sounds like a ton of money, but because it is a hit-driven hobby, aside from the key rookies every year, in opening my jumbo box, I did get Nolan Gorman numbered to 88.
Okay.
It was pretty nice. I got one of those super short prints, which I'm not even going to today because that's a whole other issue.
I know, that's going to be awesome.
So those were awesome, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
2 really good cards. I got my money back a little bit more from the 2 boxes I bought. Then I got to the autograph that I pulled, and I hope I'm jinxing this dude to be awesome.
I know you are.
It is a rookie autograph, which is kind of what you want to get if you're not going to get like a Mike Trout, Shohei Ohtani, Aaron Judge, etc.
Hold on, I'm knocking on wood. All right, go ahead.
Well, you're doing so for Buddy Kennedy.
Okay, Buddy Kennedy
with the Arizona Diamondbacks. Okay. If there's something that truly screams no investment potential, it would be this card. So I'm hoping it does pan out for him. I mean, it's nothing special. It's not numbered.
Right.
It's a cool looking card. But to get 2 cards that were not autographs, to be well past that, and I don't even know what the relic was. It was something. There's 2 kind of relic cards. There's the stuff with the game used batter material from their jerseys or whatnot. And there's what they call manufactured relics, which are also blaster boxes in stores generally, which basically is exactly as it sounds. They manufacture something to stick in the card and make it real thick. But some of them look really cool. It's just something extra within the box.
Absolutely.
With the hobby boxes, though, if you are looking to collect, for fun and have a collection and to make money, you're honestly not going to do it in the long term buying retail. It's not going to happen. You might have a couple great pulls here and there, and you might make a little bit of money, but without going after the bigger hits that are available in hobby, it would be almost impossible to truly make it a profitable endeavor with nothing but just base cards and not much else to chase after.
Yeah, and that makes sense. And so I think that's a good place to stop it for today. I'm getting the notification that our time is just about up here anyway. So we didn't get to half the things I wanted to discuss, but hopefully, when people see this, when we put this out, this will kind of give you a good intro as to what we are trying to do here. This is more just, our opinion. Steve more so than me because he's the expert on, just having an area where people could go for advice in getting into this hobby and the different avenues you can go down. That being said, I think we'll pick it up next time with the hobby retail discussion that we just kind of bookended and kind of jump off from there. Steve, anything I missed? Anything you want to talk about before we get going here?
No, I think that is a good jumping off place for people, is just understanding what you're buying, where to get it from, which is important too. Dealer wise, I have my personal favorite place to buy from, but you can find dealers on eBay, various websites, message boards. You'll find the good ones out there. They're very prevalent. There's a forum that's very huge that has great prices on wax boxes and hobby boxes. Just quick little Google search will put people in the right direction.
Absolutely. And I'm sure we'll touch more on that in the future. Until next time, hopefully everybody enjoyed this. Thank you so much for checking it out. This is Ray. For Steve, this is the Card Historian Podcast, Episode 1. We hope you enjoyed, and we will see you next time.